in the course of reading the books that you gave to us,
Mm.
something stood out to me which resonates with you. That which you're looking for is also looking for you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I was looking for something, and
Mm.
that thing was already there in the form of Genius Metaphor.
Yeah.
And it found me.
The Mastermind Podcast is partly sponsored by Melifont Grove Apartment, a top-class luxury apartment and luxury living, located at 512 Anthony Osotino B Street, Oye, Abuja. Call 0803-868-2593 for your reservations.
Welcome to the Mastermind Podcast. I am Grace Sulu and I am your host on the GM-4 Mastermind Podcast. Today we are going to have an amazing conversation, our very first maiden conversation with the CEO and founder of Genius Metaphor. He is no other than Mr. Victor Onochie. Mr. Victor, welcome to the Mastermind Podcast.
Thank you, Grace. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here with you, Grace.
Yeah, you look amazing. I love your suit, your glasses. You're ready for today's interview, right?
Yes, always ready. Thank you.
Always ready. Victor, we've known for over 5 years or 6 years?
7.
7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. We met at Toastmasters.
Yeah, Toastmasters, yeah.
Yeah, Toastmasters. You were the vice president of Aso Rock Stars, and then eventually you became the president. And that was where we first, had an encounter. And I remember you evaluating one of my speeches. Do you remember what you told me?
What did I say?
You told me that you were able to see certain qualities that I didn't really see in myself.
Okay, I remember. I
Yeah.
told you you are a natural trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that speech.
Yeah. Do you remember what the speech was on?
I think I remember the experience. I still remember vividly what was going on, but I can't remember the speech in and of itself.
It was on vocal variety.
Vocal variety. Okay,
Yes.
yes.
During the course of our journeys together, thanks to Toastmasters International, you put a call through to me about being a part of the Mind Gym. Now, before I delve into that, I want you to please tell us more about who you are and what GM4 is all about.
So who am I? I'm
Aside your name.
Well, I'm a human being that I'm interested in, I think, human growth, personal development. Probably growing up, I've always been interested about learning about the human being, the human journey. But it wasn't something I knew was a thing. I was just inquisitive about that. And so I would say I'm just somebody who is inquisitive about life, about the human experience. So that has led me to probably what I am now as a leadership coach. And so we have Genius Metaphor, which is really about the evolution of the human being. It handles 4 different areas: the self, the individual. It also focuses on marriage and family. And then we have leadership development. That means the individual's ability to lead a project, to lead something. And then we have the organization, ensuring that you have organizational health, an effective organization. So that's Victor, and that's Genius Metaphor.
Amazing. So why Genius Metaphor? You could have chosen another name. Tell us the story behind
the name Genius Metaphor.
Yeah. It's a unique name, but it is also tongue twisting.
Yeah, so Genius Metaphor, I think, so that name came to be 2016 when I had to name what this project was about. And I think at that point in time, I was doing a whole lot of study and research on these great minds, Einstein, and all of this. And one thing came clear to me, that these people, they took a path road less traveled. That's what I call it. That means they did not follow a path of any other person, but they decided to lead themselves. And so I saw that the first thing, when you look at a genius, anybody who you look at as genius, is the courage to lead their own lives. And having said that, having saw that in reading about them, I now, in my mind, it was like, okay, so true leadership is really an expression of genius. That true leadership is really an expression of genius. And so it was almost like, okay, so a metaphor for genius could actually be leadership. And so if one goes into helping people to embrace what leadership really is all about, it's really about them expressing their true selves, which when they authentically express is what we see as genius. Because I think, was it Wallace D. Wattles that said genius is the union of man and God in the acts of the soul. And so
dropping the quotes like it's hot.
So the idea is, if somebody is being true to themselves in their uniqueness, what they really would express is what we see as genius. It's just like when you see Michael Jordan, you see, it could be anybody, Jay-Z, it could be Barack Obama, is that they focused on being true to themselves. They led their own lives. And so they start representing that genius. And so I said, okay, genius metaphor. Leadership is genius metaphor.
Yeah.
That's where, the idea came from, that leadership is a metaphor for genius. And so that name came out that way. Wow. But then you see that when you spell it, it's genius, and you see META, metaphor.
Yeah.
So again, I started studying about, transformation and all. Something came to me, this word metanoia. And metanoia means transcendence. I think it's a Christian thing and all. And so the word meta really means beyond itself. It means transcendence. Yes. So genius metaphor is telling the story of a journey of helping people from where they are to become what they can be. And then the four there is really, I looked at the various areas where the human being can actually explore to be better. The physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, the four areas.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing is, that has led to almost everything genius metaphor does, because even in genius metaphor, you have the self, you have marriage and family, you have leadership development, you have organizational health, the four areas. So a lot of things of what genius metaphor does are always broken into four areas. So I think that's basically how that name came to be at that time. I needed to always, it was a thing to always remind, of this journey, what the journey was. And that's why you see the theme behind genius metaphor is redefining the essence of leadership.
Absolutely.
You understand? So that's so that we don't come tomorrow and then forget about the essence of what we're trying to do here.
Fantastic. I love how you've broken down the name so that people who are just hearing that name for the first time really know what GM4 is all about. I think I find it very comforting that I can pronounce the abbreviated version.
GM4.
GM4. Yes. I mean, it's just so sleek.
Yeah.
Genius metaphor is tongue twisting.
Yeah.
I have to think about it, but I love the concept behind the name of choice.
Okay.
Now, when I met you in Toastmasters, Victor, I had no idea that you were a leadership coach.
Okay.
I only knew or assumed prior to being a part of one of your products and services that you were into this. Now, before I dig deeper, I want you to also break down the different services that GM4 offers.
Okay, so as it stands, Genius Metaphor has a product called GM-4 Mastermind. And GM4 Mastermind has actually evolved, you know, because now you now have what we call the Mind Gym.
Yeah.
We also have the Clarity Retreat, the
Mhm.
Clarity Session,
Yeah.
and we have the Scorecard.
Mm.
This is all under GM4 Mastermind. But initially, it was just GM4 Mastermind, everything in one.
Mm.
But over time, 7 people, 7 clients, it has, you know, evolved into these different. So the umbrella name is GM4 Mastermind, but it has these things. So that's for the individual, you know. But we also have what we call organizational development, which we do with organizations, you know, helping them to be able to deal with the people side, because leadership is really about people. And there's management and there's leadership. And we've been able to understand that our focus is on leadership, on clarity of vision, teamwork, decision making, being able to build the right culture to create unique values. You know, we're not really about the whole technical, financial, and all those kind of stuff. Those are so it's really about leadership that we're about. And because marriage is also something very, very important. I mean, my journey, I think, probably started from there. So we also have what we call Ready for Forever, which is about helping people get the right mindset behind going into marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because basically everything that we're doing, you know, I learned this from Steve Jobs, reading his book by Walter Isaacson, where he talked about how he came about the one of the product, I think the iPod.
Okay.
He said he believes
Was that his very first product?
No, that was not the first.
Okay,
That was not.
okay,
Yeah,
I'm
this
mixing
was when he came back to Apple after, you know, and he said, because he said, if you create a product that you feel you want, it's personal. He believes that if you create it and do a good job with it, other people would need it too.
True.
That most people try to go all out looking for how to create products out there. But he said, think of your own self. What do you think you would want? There's always a gap. There's always a void. If you can create something that you feel is useful, other people could, you know, and that's how the iPod came into play. And so I was talking about the marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As one of the services.
As one of the services, yes. So marriage is something that's very, very dear to me. And I've seen a lot of people go through the challenges of marriage. And I see marriage can be the best experience ever. It's, you know, I always say it. And I feel that if people have something that helps them in terms of gaining a kind of idea or mindset to go in to be able to have a thriving marriage, it could really help them. Because if you don't have anything and you just go into it, you might struggle. You have your idea of what you think it is.
It's like going into something without a manual.
Without a manual, without
it, or you're just trying to navigate, you know, the terrain, and then of course having something tailored for couples makes that whole institution a lot easier.
Yes,
it's like supporting with some sort of manual or document.
Yes,
but we'll talk more on that. Sorry, I'm cutting you in because there's just so much I want us to talk about, and I don't want us to derail, right?
Okay, no problem.
So, I remember you calling me in December.
2017.
2017. Yeah. December, actually, 2016 was when the call came in, and then in January 2017, I became part of the Mastermind. And that was where we were exposed to the Mind Gym and read certain books and all. I want to ask you, what made you call me? Because prior to that call, I had reached a stage in my life where I felt like, you know what, there has to be more. And it was interesting to realize that shortly after that self-reflecting retreat that I had, you put a call through to me. Because I almost missed being a part of the Mind Gym. And by the way, for those who are listening, I have been a part of almost all your product and services apart from Ready for Forever, right?
Yeah.
I've been a part of the Mind Gym. I've been a part of the scorecard, and I've been a part of the Clarity Retreat.
You're legendary when it comes to the Mastermind.
Legendary.
Yeah, that's why you're doing this.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Is it synchronicity, coincidence? I don't know what it is. But in 2016, I felt the need to, having read about Einstein Olympia, there was this mastermind he had during his time, and also read about when Napoleon Hill talked about the mastermind in Think and Grow Rich. You know, I felt that need to, build like minds for us to be able to explore personal development, vision, dreams, goals at that time. And so in Toastmasters then, I just called a group of people together. And then I had been throwing out the idea, and certain people told me, this thing you have been talking about, let's get it done. And so I called, some people. I had an idea because I had already done, my coach training. So I had an idea of, the group coaching process and all that. And so I put together, I think about 10 people then, and that started in November. But the challenge was there were still some other people who were interested, but they were not part of this group.
Yeah, because I recall that the group I was a part of was
the female, Sifia then. And I asked Sifia, who do you think, I need a female also on this to give it some sort of a balance. And I told Sifia, and Sifia looked at me and like, Grace, of course. And I was like, how did I miss Grace?
Yes, how did you miss me? To think that we go way back even before the mastermind.
Yeah, but right? I don't think we're not that close per se. I don't think we're not that close per se at that time.
So are you saying you were close to everyone else in the mastermind?
At the point in time, I think I and Sifia were close. Because I was actually having more like a coaching session with Sifia at that period. Okay. So we were, yeah. So that was how, your name came up, and I was like, oh, I have to give Grace a call. And so I gave you a call, and you were like...
And you sold it, and
yes,
it was what I was looking for.
At that time. Yeah, I still remember that the first meeting. I called you guys, we were supposed to meet somewhere, and you all came, and I told you people the idea, and everything. And then, the linchpin started January. Yeah. And...
the rest is history.
The rest is history, yes.
Yeah.
And here you are.
And I think that's one of the most important decisions of 2017 for me.
Interesting, okay.
Yes, because I want to believe that everything happens. In the course of reading the books that you gave to us, something stood out to me which resonates with you. That which you're looking for is also looking for you.
Yes.
So yes. I was looking for something, and that thing was already there in the form of Jenna's metaphor.
Yeah.
And it found me.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing journey. But prior to me becoming part of the Mind Gym, I had this idea that you were working in a corporate job, but then you transitioned. Couldn't it have been something you could have juggled at the same time? Because I realized that the passion was so strong that you had to resign.
Yeah. So it was quite it was that period. That was 2016. That was 2016. So I'm an accountant. I read accounting in school. My dad is my late dad is
a trained
I'm a trained accountant. My dad is a chartered accountant. I'm married to a chartered accountant. So I'm the only son. All I knew growing up, looking at my dad, he was a role model for me, and I just felt, why not just do what he's doing? Because he always talk about this whole accounting thing and all that, and so I went for it. Studied accounting. I was okay. I was good in what I was doing. And so at some point in my journey, while I was trying to get my professional certification, ICANN,
And ACC.
All those, those stuff. I came across the person who is presently my wife. I'd seen her and I was enamored by her. I heard about, I think they gave us an example about her in our class when we started the program, about how sound she was. And I looked at her, wow. I think she was passing the class and they gave that example. And, she was beautiful and I was like, okay, beautiful with brains.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And so we didn't have any communication.
Yeah.
But while in the program, I think at some point, I one day told myself, I think she had just come for a program that day. And I just let out a little prayer. I just said, God, if you give me this one, if I can get this, I'll rest my case.
What case were you trying to rest?
I'll settle down, basically. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, and fast forward 6 months from then, we're dating. Just like coincidence. Different things happened. We met. Somehow, know. And she had already qualified. And so she was now helping me. I was in my final stage.
Yeah.
And, she would come around, we'll be discussing management, accounting. But she noticed something about me. In normal conversations, she sensed that I was so passionate about psychology, spirituality, leadership, when I talk about the human experience and all. And one day she told me, she said, it's funny that when we talk accounting, your energy is not as strong as when we talk about the human experience, and all that. And that was so profound for me, But we kept on going. And I think at some point she told me, this thing, don't you think it's something you want to give more attention to that?
Personal development.
Yes, that personal development, And I was like, I don't understand what that means. Do I leave what, accounting?
Were you working at the time and doing your certification?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I was working at the time. And she told me, that she believes, she gave me her own experience, how she was studying pharmacy. She was supposed to be studying pharmacy. And one day her mom, while she has written JAM like twice, told her, you want to try something else? This JAM, and all. Do you want to try something else that might speak to you more? Let's look at the things you are better off,
Yeah.
And so by that navigation, they said, okay, let's try accounting. And she wrote accounting and she got the score that was beyond, and that's how she entered, did accounting, was good in it. When it came to her professional, in her first sitting, she passed all happy, So that was where she knew that most times people might be doing what it's not really their
passionate
yes,
about. Yeah.
And that was a light bulb moment for me. And I started thinking about it. And I told her then, I've given so much to accounting. I did my OND accounting. My dad spent a lot of money for me to go to Millennium University to do accounting. How do I live? And she told me, if you continue in a path that is not your solid strength, especially now that you see this, you might just be average.
Yeah.
But this thing is so strong that even when she's listening to me, it's almost like, how do you know all these things? And if she felt if I give it time, 10 years it could be, that whatever it is I think I have done in accounting, I'll catch up for it in that. And so that's where I started while I was working. In short, at some point, I had to drop the whole the whole accounting thing. And I had to create a schedule. Now, at this point, we're now talking about getting married. We got married. I was working. I was an accountant in an organization. But I had to schedule time to be studying this part. I came across Tony Robbins then, and I saw coaching, started exploring this world of coaching, psychology. Then Stephen Covey, and in doing that journey, I started defining what I really wanted to do. This is the path I wanted to go. And well, I say long story short, different events led to another, and I just
Everything played out.
Yes, because at some point,
perfectly.
while I was in what I was doing, I was struggling emotionally with the whole situation. So in 2016, a lot was going on. I had an accident. My dad had an accident. We're going for my father-in-law's burial. Just lost my wife lost her dad, and we're going for the burial. And then on the road, my dad was driving behind me, my dad and my mom, I and my wife and my little baby then. He was just about 1 year. And then there was an accident. I still remember the incident, and that event has a lot to do with my journey, because then I saw how in split second life can just go, And so while we went for the burial, luckily enough, that day was one of the craziest days in my life, because my dad's car was gone. We had to take him to the hospital. He had stitches. And then we had to now continue the journey to the east. So I had to drive with all my family in the car in the thick of the night, and the rain was falling.
That was very brave.
Me, my wife, my baby, my mom, my dad. Yes. So that was a thinking, that was a point to really think about, a defining moment, So while we were during the burial, I made a prayer. I said a prayer. I said, God, I told God, I said, if you show me a sign, if you give me something concrete, I'll leave this thing. I'll leave this job and focus on this part. And what I needed was probably a major client, something, a sign. I made this prayer on a Sunday. And so we set back out to come back to Abuja. I think on a Monday, I and my wife, my dad and my mom stayed back. And on Tuesday, we got to Abuja. We got to Abuja on Monday. And on Tuesday, I met with someone based on another project, something else. And we just started having a conversation. And that was where at the point, the guy, he just told me, dude, do you do this professionally? And I told him, yes. He said, can I pay you? I need this. And he hit me.
That was an answered prayer.
That was an answered prayer. But then I didn't take it seriously. I now told him I'll send him an invoice. And so I went home and I told my wife, and she was like, okay, what's going on here? I sent him the invoice, and he wrote the check.
Wow.
And he was even pleading to pay for he and his friend. And I told him, no, you can't pay for your friend. Your friend has to. The thing about coaching is there has to be skin in the game.
Exactly, exactly.
And
because I realized something.
Yes.
You can't coach someone who does not want to be
Exactly.
coached.
There has to be a skin in the game.
You will go through a lot of pain. And trust me, this is from having worked with you and being a part of
the project
for so long.
Yes. You get to learn that. And so the way things happened, I called my office, told them about the situation, the accident and everything, told me to take my time. I came back to the office that week. I think the next week, and I kind of got
this unsettling feeling.
I actually got a kind of a treatment which I didn't find comfortable. And so on a Friday, while I was there was a meeting I had, and I just resigned.
That was very risky, because they always say before you resign, you should have a plan, right?
So the funny thing is, it's something I have been working on to do. Okay. I had this conversation with my wife. And you see, the funny thing is, I say this, that you can't just jump. My wife was in the picture.
Yeah.
And she told me it has to be done. And because she told me, look at the trajectory of what has happened. Look at the prayer. Look at where is the faith if you don't
take that leap?
Because you asked for something and you were given that thing. So how would you not move with that? And she told me it's better. I remember her words. She said, it's better we soak the gari now than in the front. Because this thing will keep on haunting you. This passion, this thing, this voice, this purpose, you need to bring it to fruition. And I remember parking my car when I was about to make that decision. I called her and I told her, I don't think I should do this thing. Let's, that they have a plan for me. They want to promote me. They want,
Yes.
And she told me, do.
Isn't it interesting how when organizations sense that you're about to leave, then they know that you are very valuable to the organization and they start bringing tempting offers.
So, you see, I say this to people that life would not, like, you won't get your purpose or what you're supposed to do on the bed of roses. There's what we call the resistance. You will be faced with, it's not an easy road. It will not come to you sleeping. It's a challenging thing. It's a challenging thing, and you have to understand it. And most times I think people have to practice solitude. You need to be with yourself.
True.
Because the more you spend time with people, people will be advising you.
We don't spend time with ourselves enough. And I like that you brought that up because we seem to be spending time with other people.
Trying to gain validation with people, people advising. I mean, everybody will try to advise you logically, realistically. But when you go and look at people who probably have been able to pursue a path, a road less traveled and all, it's messy. It's messy. You have to create that path. It has to be from a place of courage, from a place, you just have to do it. It's not, nobody says it's going to be easy.
Reminds me of one of the books you recommended for us during our time in the Mind Gym. The Obstacle is the Way.
The Obstacle is the Way.
The Obstacle is the Way by
Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday.
Yes. I mean, you have to embrace that. And so that's why I tell people, nobody will come and tell you it's time. In short, everybody will tell you, dude,
they will tell you
be realistic.
Yes.
Who will pay the bills? You understand? And me, I do not advise anybody to, because it's personal.
Yeah.
It's personal. And trust me, when you do it, you know what you're doing. People say, oh, my wife doesn't support me, my husband. My wife did not support me from just because I told her to support me. She saw the work I was putting in year in, year out, year in, year out. It was from what she was seeing that she knew that, dude, let's do this thing.
So it goes beyond you just saying, I have this amazing dream and passion.
You need to be working on it.
Exactly.
You need to be working on it. In the game. You need to be working on it. Yes.
What would you say is your greatest reward for starting the linchpin and 10X and going on this path?
I mean, looking at the lives that, looking at people before the mastermind and seeing people.
You can feel free to give an example
of
me, because I remember there was a time you met me in Toastmasters and I was saying, well, I think what you could perceive from me was that there was so much blame and negativity.
Yes.
And you said to me, Grace, there is a book I need you to read. Do you remember? We were at this particular Toastmasters Club. I think it's the Millennial Toastmasters Club. And just after I gave my speech, or I think I played a role there, we were catching up and, trying to socialize. And you heard me say something. And that was you stepping in to say, you know what, I think there is a book I would like to recommend for you.
And you read the book?
Yeah, I read the book. And then shortly after that, calling me to join the Mind Gym. So picturing me before and now.
And you today.
Yeah, and today. And it doesn't mean that the journey has stopped. That's not.
No, it's a lifelong journey.
Exactly.
It's a lifelong journey.
Exactly.
I mean, there are quite a number of people that have passed through and their lives today, looking at it. I think that's the most fulfilling thing to me than anything. And that's why at this point, we're trying to take it to a whole different level, to give a whole lot of other people the opportunity to be part of it.
I want you to be specific. Like I said, you can feel free to take punches at me. Say the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So I think one of the most impactful book I have read in my life is one book that I think it is so underrated, but it is incredibly, it's a giant of a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And when I met you, when I talked to you, I sensed a lot of blame, complaint, excuses, looking down on yourself. And because I had read this book and had to fuse it, because my journey is similar to everybody. People might look at me today. I struggled the same thing, blaming, complaining, going to newspaper stand, abusing the whole night. Like
it was, I agree. My mindset was
exactly. And so I'm very, very cautious to know that if you focus on your strengths, the things you have power over, and you give it time, you transform your life.
True.
Because you're throwing away your energy when once you point out something outside you, you're a victim now, So at that point, I noticed that with you, complaining, excuses, oh, why this? And I looked at you and I told you,
I wasn't a very confident person back
exactly.
then. Even though I was in Toastmasters and it was a facade. I was masking so much.
True. Because what personal development will do is that it will reflect you to you in the mirror. It's like
exactly. I wasn't even aware that I was thinking that way, and I was allowing that thinking to show on the outward.
Yes.
And
look at you today. Look at you today, hosting this, doing great things, the HR industry, a whole lot. Being a leader now, it's amazing and it's fulfilling to me. And I remember, when I used to say to you, when you speak and I say something like, there's a similarity I see with you and Oprah. One day I know I'll see you speaking, hosting events. And I told you that one day you would host something like this, as far as even Genius Method is concerned, which you are now doing. So,
and words are powerful.
Yeah, words are powerful, because this was 5 years ago I said that.
And they today, definitely come to reality.
True. So it's fulfilling, and I people take personal development trivial. They take it trivial because they think it's not about reading books. It's about meeting the right book at the right time and walking through the experience of that book. And that's why when it comes to the Mind Gym, it's a lot of research, a lot of years in research.
Yes, I was going to ask you.
Yes.
The books are so perfect. I don't think I ever read a book and regretted reading it. Rather, I read all the books that you have carefully selected, and I'm like, how in the world did he come to understand that these books were just the right books?
It took a lot of reflection, a lot. So you probably will see a schedule of your books, and even the flow, the arrangement of how the books go. Probably took me 6 weeks.
Wow.
Pondering, sleep, wake up, because I had to think about the individual. I had to think about the journey, and how these books would make the impact. And so that guided the very materials, the books, the right book to handle various things. And the thing about the Mind Gym was it's not a book club as much as more like a group life coaching program.
Yes.
Because the exploration, you probably read 7 Habits, but then you come in, you talk about it, another person talks about it.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I try to facilitate an understanding. You understand? That was really a major thing, to facilitate an understanding that makes you actually integrate it into your life, which is the goal is to transform the being, the mindset. Because until the mindset shifts, whatever the person is doing outside would not change.
Absolutely.
It was not about giving you techniques. No, it's about changing your being, how you see things. And then if that changes, if your paradigm changes, how you deal with the world change. And being in that circle with those people, and also seeing how every other person is going through that experience, it's almost like an accountability group.
Yes.
That helps you go deal with this thing. After 2 weeks, you come back. So it was always on you, always on you. And that's why,
I love how you incorporated certain aspects of basic psychology,
Yeah.
habituation and modeling.
Mm.
When you put individuals in a particular group for a certain period of time, they learn, they pick certain habits. So if you came to the Mind Gym,
Yes.
you will be inspired by someone who was actually reading.
Exactly.
If you weren't reading.
Exactly.
I remember there was a time you asked us to, I think there was a particular day we were supposed to submit our book review. I don't know if you remember. Kesmap hadn't finished his book review.
Okay.
So he was rushing. You know, like we did everything possible because you wouldn't want to come to book review and realize that you were the only one who didn't do your book review. And it wasn't just about coming up to give a brief summary. You tailored certain questions.
Yes. To guide what you pick from the material.
Exactly.
Yes. Because, I mean, you could read a book and, oh, I love this book. So tell me about the book. And you can't really tell me anything. You just keep telling me, oh, I just loved the book. It was
exactly.
So
but then you can't pinpoint.
Exactly. So I had to use coaching-like question to create a kind of questions to guide people as they are reading. And, you know, the power of writing, you know, because you guys would submit a review, the power of writing, thinking, you know, integrating that thing into you, it helps. And creating a group that holds you accountable.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it could be me and you just come and tell me any story you want to tell me. But then you guys had a pledge.
Yes, we had so many. We had a timer. We had a taskmaster.
A taskmaster, you know. Yeah. So learning different skills. So it was a hybrid of a lot of things. Learning how to speak.
Yes.
Learning how to think. A lot of things. And that accountability group made people to ensure. Nobody wanted to come to the group to give excuses.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to. So, I mean, people would spend night. I mean, we had a deadline for submitting your review, I think about 12 midnight. And I'll see review coming in 1 minute after 12, you know, and things like that.
Because they knew that.
Yes. Because I was going to tell people that, okay, so person did not submit. You know, nobody wanted to be that person.
Yeah.
And that's why I say most times when you want to do anything in life, if you want to ensure that you inculcate a habit, create a sense of accountability.
Exactly. You know, you said something that took me back to the gift you gave me as the most peak performance partner.
Yes.
I never knew that I had that skill in me.
Yes.
Being a part of the Mind Gym
brought that out.
And thanks to you, because I always tell people that, like I said, that decision, that call that you made to me and me being ready and running with the service was one of the greatest decisions of 2017. And we've talked so much about the Mind Gym. I want us to talk about the Clarity Retreat, because this is also a service of the Mastermind or of GM-4 rather, that I've been opportune to be a part of. Also the scorecard. So do you want to touch a bit on this too?
Okay, so you see, what happened was the first time we created the Mastermind, it had the personal, the books part. And if you remember, we also had goals where we set our goals.
Yes.
And in order to be able to set those goals, we had to do something we called a retreat, if you remember.
Yes.
And in that retreat, we would come early in the morning and sit down. And I had...
For a whole day.
Yeah, for a whole day, you know, and I was able to, I had these coaching tools which I was able to help you guys to be able to bring out those goals and be able to break them down. And while this was an internal thing, certain people within, especially your own group, kept on telling me that, see, people are asking me, what is this thing? What are you doing? What's happening to you? I'd like to be part of it and all. And I think that was where the idea of bringing it out commercially came about. You know,
because when you did start, it was free.
It was free. I just brought a set of friends.
And I was like, why will you bring something as
like that
relevant and important as this and share it with the world for free?
Yeah, it was also a learning. I think it was good I did that because I learned a lot, you know, that now transcended to, you know,
where GM-4 is at now.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Clarity Retreat was that. It was a one-day event to be able to help people dig in, to be able to bring out what was most important to them. Because people pursue goals, and most times the goals they pursue are actually copying other people's goals. But the retreat was a platform to help people sit and search deep with questions that were supposed to evoke you to go deep within yourself. And when people were able to do that, you know, they go through the wheel of life, a whole lot of things.
Yes.
They are able to see themselves.
The gratitude journal
and all, you know. And one is they bring out the true vision they have within them. They get to know themselves better. They also flip the entitled mindset to go into a more empowered gratitude mindset. That was the clarity retreat. And then we now said, okay, fine. So if you remember, my own goal was to get this thing out commercially, you know, and that was where you came on board, where you asked if there was any way you could help, you know, and I said, I really need to get this thing out there. Everybody wants this thing.
Because I had to do that because I was like, how can you have something this valuable and
it's just
there
within...
isn't anybody to push this thing out. So
exactly.
I made myself
you volunteered.
an ambassador.
Yes.
You know.
And I think you have a lot of great grandchildren now.
I do. And
people who you referred to that referred other people and referred, you know. And
I'm happy.
That's a legacy you have here.
Thank you. And I have you to thank for it, because if I never met you, these lives that have been affected by the Mind Gym and the product of Jenna's Metaphor wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
So thank you also for taking hold of this dream and passion and running into it the way you have so far.
So you say that it might just sound easy that, you know, I took the dream and around with it. And you see, I want to always say this to people, that these things are not that easy, and most times you might need to learn how to work with people to bring a vision to reality. You need to most times work with a team.
The right team.
The right team. That's where you come on board. I mean, there's a period, if you didn't push, this thing could have died at some point.
Yeah. I remember pushing you like
I
was.
Yes. So that's why you need to be able to build a team around what you are really trying to do. People who believe what you're trying to do. You know, and with, you know, somebody will look at this whole thing and think, oh, I mean, it started 2011. I left my job 2016. You know, the clarity retreat, everything. This is 2023, and we're still going on it, moving it from one level to the next level.
Evolving. I'll never forget the book. Sorry, I keep cutting in. I'm just too excited about this whole thing. Ray Dalio's book on the principles.
Yes.
He keeps talking about the fact that you don't have to wait for it to be perfect.
Yes.
Just start. And then you keep evolving, which is what is.
Yes. And if you see, the thing is, once it's authentic, if it's unique, if you're passionate about it, if you stay on it, it will keep evolving itself. I mean, I think at some point you read the story of Nike.
Yeah.
You know, Shoe Dog.
Yes.
And you saw that there were points where the same thing happened with us, where the dude wanted to abandon the project, but it was some other person on his team who had bought into it and was somewhere else. You know, and I think at the point he decided that, okay, I'm going to go and meet this guy to tell this guy that we have to kill this thing.
Yeah, because the challenges
was too much.
Was overpowering.
But when he got there and saw that dude so passionate pushing the thing, he was like, no, he can't.
Wake up. You can't let the dream die.
Yes, and imagine somebody else telling you that, dude, it's not in your place to kill this thing anymore. This thing has a life now. So I think it was something similar here, where you at some point told me, it's not about you. Look at what this thing has done to me. There are other people who it can, you know, benefit. And I mean, over 70, a lot of people have passed through this thing. There are people, I remember there was a guy, you know, at some point he was double guessing himself. He joined the Mind Gym, I think it was 2021. And one day I woke up, the guy was in the US, and he just sent me, you know, he sent me a message that he cannot thank me enough. The courage, you know. 7 Habits was one book that really hit him so hard. And a dream he had for a long time, he was able to push it, and before he knew anything, you know. So I've seen lives change in this thing. And so we try to do it in such a way where there's the Mind Gym, which is about the mind, you know, the books which you read. and there's the clarity retreat, which is about a program, a program where people are able to clarify what their goals are unique to them. There is the scorecard, which is about going after those goals. So
this is the personal one-on-one accountability
on your goals. So you have the mind gym, you have the scorecard, you have the clarity retreat. Together they make up the mastermind. Yeah, but while you were doing it, you guys were the first. You guys did it as GM-4 Mastermind.
Yes.
But when we started realizing that certain people were more interested in personal growth than even, they didn't want to go after goals yet. Yes, they wanted to sort themselves.
Exactly, because if you don't sort yourself, how do you go after your goals?
While some people wanted to go after their goals, so that's where we now had to break it down, and the umbrella GM-4 Mastermind now had the mind gym, the scorecard, and the clarity retreat. Yeah.
Interesting. You said something about the shoe dog.
Yeah.
I started to really find the mind gym, or should I say the mastermind, really interesting when we started reading autobiographies. Because I read about Oprah, I read about
Jeff Bezos,
and these are people that I look up to, that I admire so much. Anthony Robbins, I will never forget that guy. They are all my online mentors, or living or dead mentors, because there is so much you get to learn from them. Now, in closing, Coach Victor, because we all know you as Coach Victor, there is a particular quote that I am itching for you to share on the final note, and it's from The 7 Habits. Is from Stephen Covey's books.
Okay, depends on the whole book.
There is one that there is one that forms part of your end signature in your emails. I can't believe you haven't even mentioned it in the course of this conversation.
The very moment you think the problem is out there.
No, treat a man.
Okay. Treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is.
Yes.
Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will grow and become as he can and should be. So this quote,
powerful quote.
The quote is really the essence of leadership in dealing with people, because both in marriage, both in leadership, both in parenting, you need to see people from a place of potential. You need to see people for what they can be. This is a discussion that happened 5 years ago, and it's happening now.
Yeah.
And I tell people,
you saw me for what I could be.
Yes, I saw what you could be, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. But then it's a start. But the point is, we should learn to be able to see people from their potential, not just from their past weaknesses and all that. It helps. It changes how you deal with people. It makes you more patient with people.
Empathy.
Yes, because Covey will say, with people, slow is fast and fast is slow. People are not things.
Dropping them cold like it's hot.
Because if you try to, so what does a leadership coach actually do? A leadership coach mostly would work with a performer who has just been transitioned into a leadership position on how to develop the leadership skills to deal with the people. Because as a performer, you are incredibly good, and that you're good with your technical skills, you're good with all that, and it's easy that would lead you, in the organization to transition and they give you a leadership position.
Yeah.
The problem now comes is
there's
a responsibility of dealing with people,
yeah,
and they are not like you.
Yes. They are not performers like
they are not. Yes,
yeah.
And your role as a leader.
I know how you always caution me.
Exactly.
Self-awareness and environmentally
empathy
aware, because I seem to be a performer.
You are. You want that during your time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about unlocking people, being patient with them, challenging them from a place of empathy, understanding them. And when you're able to do that, results happen, because people are unique.
True.
And so you have to be able to. So that's where that quote came from with Stephen Covey. And I think Covey got it from Goethe, Wolfgang von Goethe, where he said, treat a man as he is and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will grow and become as he can and should be. which is what a leader is really supposed to do.
Awesome, Victor Onochie. I wish this conversation could go on and on and on and on and on. But if I allow this conversation to keep going, we'll keep conversing till tomorrow.
Who knows?
Who knows, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. But definitely you're going to come back again and we will talk about other topics and talk more about GM4.
So I know that from here now we'll be having, people from the Mind Gym.
Share their
experiences. I also want to learn from the experiences, what the journey has been like, where, before, during,
and after.
So now you've heard it all. It's been an amazing and interesting conversation with the founder and CEO of Genus Metaphor. And we know that Genus Metaphor is an extensive organization that caters to self-development, personal leadership towards organizations,
leadership, marriage, and relationships.
Absolutely. And so if this is the content that you seek, then click the notification button and we look forward to having you join us on our next podcast with interesting and engaging conversations centered around personal development and growth. Until our next podcast.
The Mastermind Podcast is partly sponsored by Melifont Grove Apartment, a top-class luxury apartment and luxury living, located at 512 Anthony Osotino B Street, Oye, Abuja. Call 0803-868-2593 for your reservations.